Greetings, this is your professor, Fred Witzig, and I have two book recommendations for you today. One that I'm super excited about, and the other one that is sort of a supporting book. I'm going to start with the supporting book. I'm really excited about this one too. I can't remember if I ever talked about this on a book recommendation or not, but if I have, it's been a long time, so I want to recommend it again. It's called Learning to Tell Myself the Truth by William Backus. And it's a great book in helping me. I read it actually every day. I've read it 4 times now, maybe 5 times. And every morning I read a little bit more of it because it's just a great book. It's written by a psychologist, a Christian psychologist, whose passion was, he passed away, but his passion was helping Christians to really ground our belief system, ground our emotions in a proper belief system, and a proper belief system comes from the Bible. And so he talks about various influences that get us to believe lies and how important it is that we believe truth. And it's just a really great book. It's good for all kinds of bad thinking, but in particular, he deals with 4 mental health issues: anger, anxiety, depression, and perfectionism. And so it starts off where you take a little inventory of your thoughts, and it has like a little quiz sort of thing, and you find out kind of what is plaguing you the most, and then it has a chapter on each one of those. But the idea here is that we get into traps of telling ourselves things that just aren't true. And those traps then lead to really poor emotional reactions to our world that sort of debilitate us. Either they make us act out violently, or they make us really anxious that can kind of paralyze us, or they make us really depressed, or they make us, they feed perfectionism, and all 4 of these things can really drag us down. And so I just love this book. It's a really great book. I wanted to point out something though, because I want to make another book recommendation, which feeds off of this. But and so I want to just spend a little bit of time on this book right here. It highlights 10 misbelief systems that can plague us, that can lead us down a mentally unhealthy direction. One is dichotomous thinking, where we fall into the trap that either things have to be absolutely fantastic, or if they're not, they're horrible. And so sometimes we can evaluate our behavior and our successes as, well, I see a little flaw and therefore it's all bad. I'm a failure. Everything's bad. Or there seems to be a little bit of danger and so everything might fall apart. So dichotomous thinking, either something is wonderful, beautiful, great, or it's horrible. Overgeneralization, what strikes me is about the same thing. Number 3, ignoring the positive. So we could do something really well, but we pick out the thing that's really bad and we focus on that. And we ignore all the positive things that just happened. Arbitrary inference, that is sort of like you hear something and you think, something really bad is going to happen. For instance, your boss's failure to say good morning does not mean he's about to fire you, right? So your boss comes in, doesn't notice you're there, doesn't say hi to you, and you think, oh no, that means he's about to fire me. No, it doesn't. Mind reading. Okay, this is something I think very common, where you say something and somebody reacts and you think, oh, that person didn't like it. Oh no, that person doesn't like me. Oh, that person maybe that person was nice to me because, and we make up some reason. We have no idea why that person reacted the way he did, but we think we do. We mind read. Magnification. A little something goes wrong and all of a sudden our whole world is collapsing. Minimization. That's sort of like ignoring the positive, but for instance, do I minimize compliments from others rather than accepting a compliment with a simple thank you? Do I frequently add a but clause when making a positive descriptive statement? The reception went really well, but, or I appreciate you doing the dishes, but, that sort of thing. Reification of feelings, where we think because we feel a certain way, therefore it must be so. Stop and think about that one. We feel a certain way, and therefore it must be so. That's gonna be important later. Labeling. Oh yes, labeling. I do something wrong. Oh, I'm horrible at that. Or somebody does something a little bit. Oh well, here's some examples. When I spill my drink, burn the toast, or lose my keys, am I quick to say to myself, "How can I be so stupid?" When someone makes an obvious mistake, or when I make a mistake, do I think, "What an idiot"? Do I label my kids? That one is the active one, or the handful, or the rebellious one. So do I label things, and that becomes true in my mind of that person. And then fortune telling. Oh no, I just saw the news. Everything's toast. Everything's going to fall apart, right? So anyway, 10 things that are problematic in how we think. Okay, and then this last one, or the next thing I want to just share with you here is, and this is in a chapter on anxiety, and it says, avoidance, the power source of anxiety. The misbeliefs in anxiety involve overestimating the probability of a harmful event and overestimating the harmfulness of that event. Misbeliefs in anxiety involve overestimating the probability of a harmful event and overestimating the harmfulness of that event. And so we think something bad might happen, and then that's going to be the end of our life. If it does, it's going to be the end of our life. Certainly this horrible thing is going to happen, and if it does, that's the end of me. Well, actually, it very well might not happen, and even if it does, it's probably not that bad. But the main thing that this chapter does is it says our natural reaction to things that cause anxiety is to avoid it and to protect ourselves from those situations. And all that does is reinforce and build and magnify the anxiety within us. It may get us out of a sticky situation for the moment, but it's just going to build and build and build and build. And the best way to conquer anxiety is just to endure things and just be exposed to things and learn that probably things aren't that bad. Okay, there is so much to this book. I just strongly recommend it. This is the workbook. I just strongly recommend this book. Okay. But there's another book that I just read not long ago. I read the Learning to Tell Myself the Truth book a couple years ago, or about a year and a half ago. And when we went to Greece, I read another book, and it made me think of the Learning to Tell Myself the Truth book. And that is this one, The Coddling of the American Mind: How Good Intentions and Bad Ideas Are Setting Up a Generation for Failure. It's by Greg Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt, or Haidt. I think it's Haidt. Jonathan Haidt. Haidt. Okay, this came out, I think, in 2018, and I heard about it. It was all over the place. It's a New York Times bestseller, really popular book, got a lot of press, and I thought, man, I got to read that book, and I just never did. Until I thought, hey, you know what? I got this book. I had to just read it. And so I brought it with me to Greece, and I read it, almost all of it on the way over to Greece, and I finished it on the way back. And it's just a great book. But this is an analysis, a critique of modern Americanism. And these are two people sort of on the left, okay? They describe themselves as sort of on the left. But they're not writing that way. In fact, they really show how this is a problem across American society. They have special issues, special problems with colleges and universities, which are on the left. And they just rip into them in a serious way, which is one reason why I was so interested in this book coming out of academia. I was really interested in their take on this. And I'm just reading this thing going, oh, yes, wow, yes, that's exactly what is happening. In this book, one of their main things is colleges and American society in general, but colleges in particular, are training people to be angry, anxious, and depressed. 3 of the worst problems in learning to tell myself the truth. And in fact, what they attribute the causes to is exactly what William Backus attributes the cause to. Okay, so William Backus says it's bad beliefs about how we're interpreting the world, and it's avoidance, and it's all of these things that are cause us problems. So William Backus is a Christian, and he grounds the reader in the Bible and the truth of the Bible. Lukianoff and Haidt are not Christians. At least I know Haidt. I don't think Haidt is. And at least in this, certainly they don't write as Christians. In fact, I know they're not, because they actually describe themselves. I don't think they say they're really particularly religious. But one of them went in for counseling a number of years ago with severe depression, and he learned how to combat depression. And then he came out and he watched the political scene, and he's like, whoa, we are training the next generations for mental illness. And this caught my attention in particular. Greg was troubled when he noticed that some students' reactions to speech on college campuses exhibited exactly the same distortions that he had learned to rebut in his own therapy. Many university students are learning to think in distorted ways, and this increases their likelihood of becoming fragile, anxious, and easily hurt. Oh, yes, yes, yes. They take on helicopter parenting, so it starts before this. They take on safetyism, which is the idea that that above all, we must protect our kids. We have to protect our kids above all from any sort of physical danger. And then it goes into high school and college, where we have to protect them from anything that might offend them or hurt them mentally. And it goes into college, and college is all set up. And I've talked about this in other podcasts that I've done about how American society American academia is so univocal, so just pushing one narrow agenda and trying to keep any other ideas out of it. Oh man, and what happened? Then training kids. If you hear a different idea, if you hear a different idea, the person speaking must be against you. Oh, this is mind reading. This is reification. If you feel like somebody was racist, then it was racist. No, that's reification. What learning to tell myself the truth says, reifying your emotions. If you feel something, it must be true. William Backus says, don't believe that garbage. There's no way. You're going to believe all sorts of wrong things, and it's going to hurt you. Mind reading, fortune telling, just dichotomous thinking, either somebody's good or bad. All these things are being taught in academia. And Haidt is a professor himself. And Lukianoff is just a social commentator or something like that. So Haidt is a psychologist, and Lukianoff is he works for some sort of a think tank or something like that. Anyway, so man, I'm just reading this. You just got to read this book, The Coddling of the American Mind. It will like open your eyes to what is going on in high schools now. Because the college grads are taking this into high schools, and we're turning out these kids who can't handle life. It is just so amazing. Such a really good book. I highly recommend it. The Coddling of the American Mind. It is published by Penguin. But alongside of that, I recommend the William Backus book. Both of these make a great pair. It will help you understand the world around you, and it will also help you to resist those urges in a way that will help you be more mentally healthy. So I highly recommend both of them. Thank you, and God bless.